welcome back to the Kentucky History Podcast. I'm your host, Jameson Cable, and we're going to continue our discussion about the Greenup Slave Revolt, and we're going to continue Dinah's story.
But now, coming back to Dinah, so Dinah obviously had the child. So the court records take us to 1830, April.
Mm-hmm.
So she was brought back before the judge, and she had her child. And so that's when her death sentence was pronounced, and the date was set for her hanging. And but we looked and we wondered, because we never found any newspaper account of her hanging or anything. And it's like we scratched our heads. It's like, did they actually went ahead and hung her? What happened to her child? But, there's so many questions. Yeah. And so we thought maybe she was pardoned.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe on a whim. So I contacted the Historical Society, Kentucky Historical
Mm-hmm.
Society, and at that time it was Thomas Stonehammer Metcalf, who was the governor. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, there were not a whole lot of papers that are, still at the archives that survived. And they looked and they couldn't find no paperwork. And normally the way it worked, if somebody applied for a pardon, you had members of the community like write letters to the governor or whatever, so we didn't really know who reached out, but somebody certainly did. But then the person that done the research for us down there found an entry in the executive journal, and sure enough, Dinah was pardoned.
Wow.
Which is really, it's amazing. So this was great. But what makes the story even more amazing is that Metcalf was actually related to the Allens.
Oh.
There's a family connection there.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so, but he was the bigger person here.
Yeah.
And,
wow.
And the record's a little, it's frustratingly thin, but it gives you all the information. I mean, the most key information is that,
yes.
she was pardoned. But, we still don't know her ultimate fate. She, most likely was sold probably fairly quickly, or carried all the way to the Natchez and sold, because she would have been, a valuable piece of property. Plus, with the child, you would sell them probably together at that age.
Yeah.
So, but so we're still left with questions. Yes.
Yeah. So because that's got me thinking. So. Yeah. So Allen was related to Metcalf in some sort, discipline. But if she was pardoned, that doesn't necessarily mean she gets her freedom, right?
Oh no,
that's right.
Okay,
she got.
It just means that she's not she's not executed.
Not pardoned.
Right.
So she basically just remained a slave, right? Remained slave property, and was returned to Gordon.
And went back under the captive. Because I had this thought, man. That's very. It was being the bigger person for Metcalf to do that, but then I'm thinking, well, but what if he did that just so that she would go back into slavery and be under the care of Gordon? We don't know, obviously, but
it was his property. They were considered property.
Yeah.
So sparing her life, and the baby, this was property that belonged to Gordon and Allen. And Allen, of course, had passed away, but Gordon was still very much alive. And I think he recuperated, and because he kind of picked up a bride along the way, but that's another story altogether. So she went back to slavery. There's no doubt about that. And my guess is that he sold her fairly quickly, because a slave that would be involved in such a such an action would have been considered, unruly or
Yeah.
you just did not want to deal with that. You
Yeah.
got rid of slaves like that. They
And
troublemakers.
how old would her, baby have been by the time it was all done? The pardon and stuff? Or do we
I
know
would
that
say
or not?
about I'm assuming maybe a month or so. Very young.
Okay. Oh, very
Yeah,
young.
Mhm,
Okay.
yeah,
mhm.
yeah. But yeah, it's an amazing story, and it really grips
Yeah.
you. Every time
Yeah.
when we tell it, I mean, it really gets people in the feelers. It's
Yeah.
it does. It
Well,
touches you.
uh,
And researching it, oh my God, I remember that morning when I was finally able to locate the slave bills, which I had
mhm,
tried for a year, and to actually, come across this information, which was thanks to a wonderful database that is maintained by the University of Salisbury, who
mhm,
started going through court records and uh, basically feeding that information into a database.
mhm.
And Gordon's name popped up, and Alan's name popped up,
Yeah.
and I knew I was onto something. So that connected me with the original records that were digitized by the state of Maryland. And so I could actually pull up the actual records and
Oh.
to actually see the sales bill like in person and see Dinah's name spelled out and have a physical
Mhm.
description and know where she came from and how old she was and who her enslaver was that actually sold her. We have all that information now on
Wow.
each member of that couple, and
Mhm,
never dreamed that we would be able to do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that story has come together really wonderful, and
mhm.
we're happy that we can share that with people, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, memorialize, these people for,
Yeah.
the courage and everything that and the suffering, that they went through,
Mhm.
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
that, you know, this won't be forgotten. I mean, and really it almost was. Um,
Yeah.
in many ways you could say it was forgotten.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's really been an incredible, uh, research journey, um,
Mhm.
and it's been humbling in many ways, um, because it's such a powerful story,
Mhm.
and, we're excited that the National Park Service has, agreed with us, that this is,
Mhm.
important Underground Railroad related history, which, at first blush, you might think, well, how is this Underground Railroad? Um, but the National Park Service defines, the Underground Railroad as resistance to enslavement through escape and
Mhm.
flight.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they literally were trying to escape,
Yeah.
and they did escape.
Mhm.
You know, um, exactly how long they were at liberty, right? How close
Mhm.
they got to the Ohio River, we don't know, and I don't think we'll ever know.
Yeah.
Um, but the National Park Service's recognition, I think, is significant because it
Mhm.
recognizes just how important this is for American history,
Yeah.
not just Kentucky history,
Mhm.
but American history. And so our project is being funded by the Appalachian Regional Commission through what's called a power grant,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but it's meant to try to uh, support the development of cultural heritage tourism in eastern Kentucky, um, southeastern Ohio, and western West Virginia, the tri-state area.
Yeah.
Um, and so, what we're doing is building out a new tour of the tri-state area, with in this initial phase 27 verified Underground Railroad sites that the National Park Service has listed with their program. It's called the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom
Mhm.
Yeah.
program. and so we're very happy that we've listed two sites in Greenup, and that
Mhm.
we have additional ones in the pipeline.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so our work is continuing, and honestly, all of these stories in their own way are almost as dramatic, or are as dramatic,
Mhm.
um, and and ultimately historically significant.
Mhm.
That's really should be part of everybody's understanding of our local history here in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and now you have an event coming up here, in September. Um,
Mhm.
but tell us a little bit about that.
You, Marletta, you want to?
Well, like you mentioned, National Park Service, acknowledged and accepted, the site into their network. So there will be a marker placed at a site at Lynn, and which will be September 24th,
Mhm.
um, in the morning at, I think, is it 10 or 10:30?
It's
I can't.
10 a.m.
Mhm.
At the former site of Lynn Elementary School.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's Lynn. It's a small little, you know, crossroads, really, in
Yeah.
Greenup. Um, but it turned out that when we were researching the location, we discovered that um, one of the best locations to market would be the site of the former elementary school.
Mhm.
Mm,
We know for a fact that the coffle passed right through there,
yeah.
and
Yep.
that the revolt happened within that vicinity.
Yeah.
So it's not the exact spot where the revolt happened. We just know that it is within that immediate vicinity there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the wonderful thing about it is that in many ways the valley there, the Tigert Valley, it just kind of opens up, um,
Mhm.
and it's a beautiful, kind of Kentucky River
Yeah.
valley, in eastern Kentucky. And so it looks in some ways like it would have looked, 196 years ago,
Mhm.
Mhm.
with just a few modern houses, that you can see. But the landscape and everything, it really, you can almost be transported back in time
Yeah.
Mhm.
when you visit there.
Yeah. Well, it sounds pretty amazing that, well, one, you were able to find this story,
Mm.
and then secondly, put it all together in a way that, hats off to you guys for finding the information
Thank you.
and getting it done, because oftentimes people, when you're researching, especially when you're getting into enslaved people, um, it's hard to find records. I mean,
Mhm.
and I was gonna ask the question, like, is there a story to the enslaved before they, uh, were purchased and moved? Um, and it's good that there is a little bit,
Mhm. Mhm.
obviously not as much as others may have been, but to complete the story, though, to go from know what happened at the beginning to the end is pretty amazing, pretty good too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um,
It's really been a surprise, you know. I mean, we I guess, like, I knew that there was more information out there, but I never would have dreamed that we could have gotten the details that
Mhm.
Marletta and I have been able to uncover.
Yeah.
Um, um, it's almost like, somebody wanted us to find these materials, and that we have received assistance.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yes.
Well, you mentioned the David Walker's appeal, right? Um,
Hmm.
and just clarify, because I'm trying to think. You said the executions. I mean, that was pretty quick, right? So the appeal,
Right.
did that amount to anything, or how did that part of it work? Um,
Okay. So um, he what appears is that he may have been already working on his manuscript
Mhm.
when he read the news about the Greenup Revolt,
Mhm.
and we've been able to track, its initial publication in Portsmouth. I
Mhm.
think it's
Mhm.
picked up by the Chillicothe, Ohio paper, the Cider Gazette. Ultimately, it gets in the Nile Register, which is like a
Mhm.
national magazine, and then it pops up in New England. Um, Marlitta mentioned it was published down in Maryland.
Mhm.
Yep.
Um, so um, David Walker's living in Boston. He's
Mhm.
already an abolitionist. He's a leader in the Black community. He's a public figure
Yeah.
in the abolitionist movement in Boston. Um, and from reading what Walker says about it, he was it was really almost one of the stories that really fired him up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, and he used it to really drive home, some of his most radical points
Yeah.
about you know self-defense um, in the name of your liberty, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and so anyway, so his appeal um, was printed in Boston, and then it was distributed through abolitionist circles, and copies ended up getting down into the South. And once officials got copies of it or found it, they were quite disturbed that this literature was being circulated, in free Black communities, maybe even with the slave population, of course, and that it was going to trigger revolts. It was going to trigger a race war or what have you. So um, Walker actually had a bounty put on his head.
Oh.
It's been reported. Um, Now and then he died mysteriously. Um,
Yeah.
Not long after the publication, and
Mm.
after it caused the stir. And so there's always been speculation that he might have been murdered, um, but my understanding, that's never been proven
Yeah. Yeah.
um, one way or the other. So its impact, the impact was really large in the sense on the larger abolition movement. um, Walker's appeal inspired further
Mhm.
resistance. Um, in that sense, uh, uh, one of the other important points here is that it was African American abolitionists that were really kind of pushing the more radical positions at this period of time.
Mhm.
So it's people like David Walker and others, uh, ultimately like Frederick Douglass, and that get the white abolitionists to come over from gradual emancipation to
Mhm.
immediate
Yeah.
uh, abolition.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and the slave revolt actually made an impact here in Kentucky too. I mean,
mhm,
it incensed the public tremendously. Winston Coleman talked about that, and according to him, it actually led to the passage of the 1833 Non-Importation Act,
Mhm.
which existed here until what 1849 when it was finally repealed. But it basically banned importation of slaves into the state for commercial purposes. And that's supposed
Mhm.
to be a direct result of this revolt.
Mhm.
So
mhm,
it made an impact on, on various fronts, so to speak.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Well, and I was thinking there of some other, you're talking about like, gathering support from other abolitionists and,
mhm,
African American and white. Um, and I was thinking of John G. Fee, but he probably would have been a little too young. He was born, I think,
yeah,
in 18, like 16, something like that. So he probably was still. I mean, he would have been pretty close, I think. Uh, I can't think of the county he was born in, right off the top of my head. It's on the Ohio River.
Lewis
Like, I
County?
don't was he born in Lewis? I know that's where he, started his ministry, I think was in Lewis
Yeah,
County.
he was, what's
Um,
is it, what's to the left of Lewis? Is it Bracken?
Bracken?
Bracken. Yeah.
Okay.
That's yeah, because he left his father's, once he got a little older, left his father and,
Mhm.
moved over to Lewis, and then but again, I'm sure he heard about it maybe in
Oh,
his time, and got
yeah.
wind
oh,
of it,
yeah.
because it would have been pretty fresh,
Mhm.
when he was younger,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
um, Cassius Clay. I mean, maybe he would have. I don't know. It just
Well, it made the press in Kentucky. Like I
mm,
said, it upset people, and if it
yeah.
actually spurs, legislation,
Mhm.
then people are talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Right.
it,
Right.
Uh,
especially slaveholders,
mhm.
because I think, these type of revolts was like their worst nightmare.
Yeah. Oh,
There
yeah.
was always this fear of an uprising, that something would happen, and they would be killed in the middle of the night. I
Yeah.
mean, they were beset with that idea all the way until they finally abolished it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's that specter that hung around. So I can imagine how, um, a revolt like that really scared them to death.
Yeah.
The funding for the project is ultimately coming from the Appalachian Regional Commission, but our primary partner in this is the Lawrence Economic Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit in Lawrence County,
Mhm,
Ohio. And they have been really, key in applying for the grant, for the power grant, and then managing the grant. But they're really connecting basically the history, right, that we're
Mhm.
working on
Yeah.
with the tourism uh, uh, folks in the different counties. So we're partnering with the tourism folks in Greenup County, in Boyd County, right?
Mhm.
So we're marking places in Boyd as well, and outside Ashland, and then at Catlettsburg.
yeah,
So um, it's really a partnership that is behind this. Shawnee State University
Mhm.
is where I'm at, and I'm directing the research and the outreach. But my assistant director is Dr. Cicero Fane III, who's a professor of history at Marshall University in Huntington.
Okay.
mhm,
And so it's we've put together this really great team, which each county, we're in 9 counties, and each county has a outreach specialist, the local sort of underground railroad a historian that
mhm,
we've tried to recruit to work with us.
mhm.
And so, when we first got together, we joked that this was like the A team, right? That we were putting together this research team. But honestly, it's proven to be the case. I think that we
Yeah.
have uncovered incredible history, and
Mhm.
we're excited to share it with the people of Kentucky and Ohio, and really the rest of the United States.
Yeah, yeah, I'll say you've hit a home run,
Thank
to
you.
say it that way. Um, well, that's again, thank you all for putting in the time, putting in the research to
Sure.
find this, and you 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 stumble upon something, and a lot of the times this is how the stories go in history. You stumble
Mm,
upon something, you dive into that rabbit hole, and not always do people come out with the complete story, but you
mm,
guys got it done. So, um,
Yeah.
thank you again for sharing it, reaching out, and talking about
mhm,
it. And I'll say it too for the people helping fund and support this. It's a necessity across all history.
yeah,
Support is needed. The funding. I mean, the stories are out there to be told. It's just
mhm,
we gotta have
Mhm.
people doing them and looking for them.
right.
But yeah, thank you all again for sharing this. Anything before we go that y'all like to share?
Well,
Just appreciate your time and your interest in supporting Kentucky history, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
So go Cats.
There we go. Yeah. Um, well, Thank y'all both for joining us, and also, don't forget, if you're in the area, in the tri-state area or around, and you got something to do on September 24th, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
That's right.
Go check out the ceremony, and more history to come. So thank you all
Yep.
for listening, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/kyhistorypod. You've probably heard about Daniel Boone, but what about the rest of the frontiersmen who came to Kentucky and settled? That's what we want to bring to the Kentucky History Channel. The stories of the untold, the stories of those forgotten. One thing to expect on our channel is great Kentucky content. Some stories that you've never heard of. The Night Riders, who began in western Kentucky. Bloody Monday, the riots in Louisville. The assassination of Governor Goebel, the only governor ever assassinated in the United States. Stories from all over Kentucky, stories that are unforgettable once you've heard them. You can find out who counties in Kentucky are named after and how your county got started. From beginning to end, we plan to document every county in Kentucky, all 120. Reach out to us on all of our social media platforms. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and also leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos. You can also check out our podcast episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many more. We're always seeking to find more Kentucky history so we can bring it to you, the viewers, the listeners. We want all the stories and all the events from Kentucky's great history to be told and shared everywhere.